I'll create part 1 of your story with a suspenseful 5-minute hook as requested. Written in third-person style with simple English. Patience. Lost. Humanity's wrath. Left the galaxy in shock. The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council's judgment chamber glimmers with the light of 3 suns. Prismatic reflections dance across the tiered seating, where representatives of 500 civilizations watch in stunned silence. At the center stands Admiral Ilara Nash, lone human representative, her military uniform crisp despite the 17-hour deliberation. Behind her, projected on a massive quantum display, hangs the image of Earth, a small blue marble that until recently, the Council had dismissed as inconsequential. The Council's patience has reached its limit, announces High Arbiter Vexmore, his translucent appendages rippling with blue light showing extreme agitation. For 3 decades, humanity has been granted provisional status while repeatedly violating territorial boundaries and extraction quotas. The evidence of your transgressions is irrefutable. Admiral Nash remains perfectly still, her expression unreadable as the evidence scrolls across the display. Mining operations in restricted systems, unauthorized wormhole research, weapons development far beyond permitted technological thresholds. Do you dispute these charges? The Arbiter demands. No, Nash replies, her voice calm, but I request permission to present context. A murmur ripples through the chamber. The 7 senior council members exchange glances through their various sensory organs. After a tense moment, permission is granted. Nash activates her neural interface. The chamber's display shifts to reveal hundreds of intercepted communications, diplomatic messages, resource requests, and formal petitions filed by Earth over 27 years. All marked with the same response. Denied. Humanity did not wish to operate outside Council jurisdiction, Nash explains. We petitioned. We followed protocols. We waited while our colony starved and our habitats failed. 312 formal requests for emergency assistance during the Proxima Centauri stellar event. All denied. The Admiral's eyes harden as she reaches into her pocket, extracting a small device that pulses with a soft blue light. The Council guards immediately reach for their weapons, but Nash simply places it on the floor. We waited until 7 million human lives were lost, and then she activates the device and our patience ended. Throughout the chamber, every communication system simultaneously activates, displaying the same message across all screens. Human fleet detected. Proximity alert. Defense protocols ineffective. This isn't a trial, Nash states as pandemonium erupts. This is a courtesy notice. The human fleet has already neutralized your primary defensive installations across 17 sectors. We didn't want war, but you taught us we couldn't survive without it. As Council members frantically attempt to contact their homeworlds, Nash stands tall, revealing humanity's true nature to a galaxy that gravely underestimated them. The High Arbiter rises to his full height, towering over Nash. His skin now pulses with red warning patterns. You commit an act of war against the oldest governing body in the galaxy, he hisses. 5,000 years of peace shattered by your primitive aggression. Peace? Nash questions, her voice cutting through the chaos. Or control. While you denied us resources, 23 of our colony worlds faced extinction-level events. We lost entire settlements while your response vessels orbited nearby, refusing assistance without proper authorization. The display behind Nash changes again, showing recordings of human outposts in crisis, atmospheric degradation on Terra Nova, the asteroid impacts in the Tau Ceti system, the radiation storms that decimated the Epsilon Eridani colonies. In each recording, Council ships are visible, watching but not intervening. Regulations exist for the stability of all. Protests Council member Drawl, her crystalline form vibrating with distress. Without proper oversight, resources would be hoarded? Interrupts Nash. Like the Council hoards them now? Our scientists analyze the resource allocation algorithms. They don't distribute based on need. They distribute based on compliance. Throughout the chamber, representatives from smaller civilizations exchange nervous glances. Many have suspected this truth but never dared voice it. Nash taps her communications badge. Admiral Nash to Fleet Command. Initiate Operation Daybreak. Above the Council chamber, the sky darkens as massive human warships decloak in perfect formation. Ships unlike anything the Council has documented in their surveillance of Earth. advanced vessels with technology the humans should not possess. How is this possible? Demands Vexmore. Our monitoring stations on your moon on Mars throughout your system, they reported nothing of this fleet. Nash allows herself a small smile. Did you really believe we would build our real fleet where you could see it? The ships you monitored were decoys, training vessels. We built our actual armada in the dimensional pocket spaces your sensors couldn't penetrate. Council security forces flood the chamber. Weapons trained on Nash, but they hesitate when she remains utterly calm. Your weapons are currently inoperable, she informs them, as are all offensive systems throughout this facility. From the upper tiers of the chamber, a delegate from the Ordos Collective stands. The human speaks truth. Our home defense grid has been neutralized. They control our orbital platforms. Similar reports echo across the chamber as more representatives receive updates from their homeworlds. Nash walks to the center of the chamber, her steps measured and deliberate. For 30 years we studied you while you studied us. We learned how the Council treats species that demonstrate too much independence. The neural harvesting of the Pelix, the economic strangulation of the Taurus Coalition, the Zetharian extinction, all civilizations that refuse to remain dependent. She gestures to the ceiling where the fleet continues to materialize. Humanity came to you in peace. We offered friendship. You offered exploitation disguised as guidance. Now you face a choice. Nash retrieves the small device from the floor, holding it up for all to see. This contains terms for a new relationship between humanity and the Galactic Council. Not as supplicants, but as equals. You have 24 standard hours to consider. As Nash turns to leave the chamber, Vexmore calls after her, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and fear. You cannot simply dictate terms to the Galactic Council. We represent the combined might of 500 civilizations. Nash pauses at the doorway, looking back over her shoulder. And yet none of them detected our true capabilities. None of them saw beyond the compliant facade we presented. Ask yourselves why. Perhaps the Council's control isn't as absolute as you believe. The doors seal behind her, leaving the most powerful governing body in the galaxy, facing a truth they never anticipated. Humanity had been playing a very different game all along. I've written part 1 of your story titled, Patience Lost, Humanity's Wrath Left the Galaxy in Shock, as requested. The story features a suspenseful opening hook showing Admiral Alara Nash confronting the Galactic Council. The impressive council chambers with representatives from 500 civilizations, a diplomatic crisis that reveals humanity's hidden strategy. Simple, straightforward English and third-person style. Themes of interstellar politics and humanity's surprising position in galactic affairs. No asterisks or repeated characters from other stories. A suspenseful narrative that should engage the audience throughout. Would you like me to continue with part 2 of the story next? I'll write part 2 of your story as requested. Continuing from part 1, while maintaining the suspenseful tone, Left the Galaxy in Shock, part 2. Patience. Lost. Humanity's Wrath. Left the Galaxy in Shock. The Galactic Council chamber has transformed from an orderly assembly into barely controlled chaos. 3 days after Admiral Nash's revelation, emergency sessions continue without pause. The holographic displays surrounding the chamber now show real-time footage from across the galaxy. Massive human warships appearing through previously unknown wormhole apertures. Deploying technologies no Council intelligence had detected during 30 years of surveillance. Torin Kav, the Council's chief intelligence director, stands before the emergency assembly, his scaled skin pale with stress. The humans concealed their true military capacity with unprecedented effectiveness, he admits. What we believed was their entire fleet was merely a defensive screen. Their actual armada was developed in dimensional pocket spaces our sensors couldn't penetrate. At the center of the chamber, Nash now sits alongside newly arrived human representatives, Dr. Marcus Reeves, Earth's foremost quantum physicist, and Ambassador Darius Okafor, whose presence had been requested after 18 Council worlds surrendered without firing a shot. You speak of peace now, challenges Arbiter Vexmore, mandibles clicking in agitation, after your forces have systematically dismantled our defensive capabilities. Ambassador Okafor rises, his tall frame commanding attention. We speak of balance, he corrects. For decades, humanity studied your history. We witnessed how the Council treated non-compliant species, the Zetharian extinction, the neural harvesting of the Pelax, the economic strangulation of the Taurus Coalition. Dr. Reeves activates a holographic display, showing mathematical equations of staggering complexity. We developed our technologies in secret because we understood the Council's pattern. Any species demonstrating rapid advancement is immediately contained, subjugated, or eliminated under the guise of galactic stability. A council member from the Dravid hegemony rises in protest. You distort our intentions. The protocols exist to prevent destructive technological singularities. Then explain this, Nash interjects, transferring data to the central display. The footage shows historical records of Council forces destroying civilian research facilities across multiple civilizations. These weren't military installations. They were medical research centers, agricultural development facilities, clean energy projects. All destroyed because they might have given their civilizations independence from Council resource control. As evidence mounts, several Council members quietly disconnect from the session. Others begin urgent private communications. Ambassador Okafor walks slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from worlds that had suffered similar treatment. Humanity's patience ended not just because of our suffering, but because we recognized the pattern. You aren't guardians of peace, you're enforcers of dependency. Dr. Reeves's display shifts to show a new set of coordinates. Our fleet is currently securing these locations. They aren't military targets. They're archives, the true historical records the Council has suppressed for centuries. The chamber falls silent as the implications become clear. Humanity hasn't just launched a military campaign. They've begun dismantling the foundations of the Council's authority by exposing long-buried truths. High Counselor Gemnar, eldest of the ruling seven, finally speaks. His ancient voice trembles not with fear but with fury. You presume to understand patterns established over millennia of careful governance. Humans have been spacefaring for barely a century. Your species cannot comprehend the delicate balance required to maintain galactic stability. Perhaps not, agrees Nash, her tone measured, but we understand suppression when we see it. Our historians discovered something interesting. In the records we've accessed, the Council's definition of stability has changed over time. She activates a timeline showing the evolution of Council policy over 5,000 years. The early Council promoted technological exchange and cultural development. It wasn't until the Primordian Schism 3,000 years ago that policy shifted toward control rather than cooperation. Dr. Reeves highlights a specific section of the timeline. We found evidence that the Council itself was infiltrated during this period. The records suggest a deliberate effort to transform the Council from a collaborative forum into a controlling authority. Ambassador Okafor gestures toward the representatives from smaller, dependent worlds. How many of your civilizations have made significant technological advances in the last millennium? How many have developed sustainable energy systems that don't rely on Council-allocated resources? Uncomfortable silence spreads through the chamber. A representative from the Lyran Collective stands, their luminous form pulsing with agitation. The Lyran people developed a renewable energy system 4 centuries ago. The Council classified it as potentially destabilizing technology and restricted its use to our home system only. We've been dependent on Council energy allocations for our colonies ever since. More representatives begin to speak up, centuries of suppressed grievances finally finding voice. Stories of promising technologies classified as threats, of resource dependencies artificially maintained, of development paths dictated rather than chosen. Nash walks to the center of the chamber. Humanity didn't build a hidden fleet because we sought war. We built it because we recognized that true independence would never be permitted within the existing system. She activates a final display, a network of secret communications between Earth and dozens of other civilizations over the past 15 years. Covert alliances, information sharing, collaborative research conducted through channels the Council never detected. Your intelligence services were so focused on monitoring our compliance that they missed our diplomacy, Nash explains, while you watched our shipyards. Our diplomats were meeting with representatives from worlds the Council has kept dependent for centuries. Ambassador Okafor nods to representatives from these worlds, many of whom now stand in solidarity. The Coalition of Independent Development has been operating in secret for over a decade. 57 species working together to break free from artificially constraints. Dr. Reeves completes the presentation. with a simulation showing projected technological development, with and without council restrictions. Under natural development conditions, at least 37 council worlds would have achieved post-scarcity economies within the past century. Instead, they remain resource-dependent. As the evidence becomes undeniable, the chamber's power dynamics visibly shift. The 7 ruling council members no longer command the automatic deference they once did. Representatives from traditionally subjugated worlds move to sit together, forming new alliances in real time. "What happens now?" asks Vexmore, his earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. "That depends on the council," Nash responds. "Our fleet remains in position not as an occupying force but as guarantors of a transition. The era of controlled development ends today. What replaces it is yet to be determined." As if to emphasize her point, the massive holographic emblem of the council that has dominated the chamber for 5 millennia flickers and transforms, no longer showing the traditional symbol of centralized authority, but a new configuration representing interconnected but independent worlds. The galaxy's future hangs in the balance as powers that have ruled for thousands of years face a choice: adapt to a new reality, or stand against the combined might of humanity, and all those who have secretly allied with them. I've completed part 2 of your story. Continuing Patience Lost, Humanity's Wrath Left the Galaxy in Shock. This installment picks up 3 days after the initial confrontation, shows the continued standoff between humanity and the Galactic Council, introduces new human representatives, Dr. Reeves and Ambassador Okafor, reveals that humanity has formed secret alliances with other subjugated species, maintains suspense as the power dynamics in the galaxy begin to shift, uses simple, straightforward English in third-person style, contains no asterisks and avoids the specific names you ask to exclude, builds naturally from part 1 while setting up further developments. Would you like me to continue with part 3 of the story next? I'll write part 3 of your story, continuing the narrative while maintaining the suspenseful tone. Edicineer part 3, typeset text markdown. Title: Patience Lost. Humanity's Wrath Left the Galaxy in Shock, part 3. Patience Lost. Humanity's Wrath Left the Galaxy in Shock. The Galactic Council's emergency session enters its 2nd week. The chamber, once the galaxy's most secure facility, now operates with human security personnel stationed at every entrance, a visual reminder of how completely Earth's forces have upended the established order. Council representatives have dwindled from 500 to barely 200, as many have returned to their homeworlds to deal with rapidly evolving situations. On the main display, footage streams in from across the galaxy. Massive public demonstrations on dozens of worlds as populations access previously restricted historical archives, ruling governments stepping down on 7 planets, and most shocking, 3 mid-tier species formally withdrawing from the Council and declaring alliance with Earth. Admiral Nash stands before the Assembly alongside General Diego Vargas, commander of Earth's 4th Fleet. The general activates a tactical display showing human forces systematically disabling but notably not destroying Council military installations across 42 systems. Your economic control mechanisms are being dismantled, General Vargas explains. The artificial scarcity protocols, the resource allocation algorithms that kept developing worlds dependent, all disabled. Arbiter Vexmore, now visibly diminished, rises to speak. You claim righteousness while bringing chaos. Do you understand what you've done? The galaxy operated on stability. Stability for whom? Interrupts a new voice. All eyes turn as Nixtel, representative of the Actarian Collective, a species that had been reduced to client status centuries ago, approaches the central platform. My people developed sustainable fusion 300 years ago. The Council classified it as destabilizing technology and restricted its use. We've lived with energy rationing ever since, while Council worlds enjoyed abundance. More representatives stand, centuries of suppressed grievances finally finding voice. The carefully maintained fiction of the Council as a benevolent guiding force crumbles with each testimony. Ambassador Okafor moves to the center of the chamber. Humanity studied your methods while you studied our compliance. We recognize the pattern used countless times. Identify promising species, offer guidance through controlled technological development, create dependency, then exploit. The difference was, we played along while preparing alternatives. The display shifts to show Earth's colonies throughout nearby systems, not the struggling outposts reported to the Council, but thriving, technologically advanced settlements built with innovations developed in secret. We maintained two civilizations, Admiral Nash explains. The one you monitored and the one you never detected. General Vargas adds, our patience wasn't just tested by denial of resources, it was your systematic suppression of every species that showed potential. Humanity could adapt, others couldn't. The chamber's doors open as representatives from species long relegated to observer status enter, the silicon-based Litharians, the collective consciousness of the myriad, the aquatic Delphians. For centuries they had been deemed insufficiently developed for Council participation. The galaxy changes today, Ambassador Okafor announces, not through humanity's wrath alone, but through the liberation of those you've kept chained. This isn't destruction, it's reconstruction. As if to emphasize his point, the massive council seal dominating, the chamber wall silently detaches and floats to the floor, a symbolic toppling of the old order that leaves everyone present understanding that the galaxy will never be the same. High Elder Koral, the most senior council member, approaches the center of the chamber. His ancient frame trembles not with fear but with rage. You destroy the work of 50 generations. The council prevented wars, regulated resource distribution, maintained balance. Through suppression, Nash interrupts. Your peace was built on ensuring no species could ever challenge council authority. That isn't peace, it's tyranny disguised as benevolence. The High Elder's eyes narrow. And what happens when your liberation leads to conflict? When newly empowered species with ancient grudges turn advanced weapons against each other? Will humanity take responsibility for the bloodshed that follows? A tense silence falls over the chamber. It's a question many present have privately considered. General Vargas steps forward. We've anticipated this concern. The human fleet isn't withdrawing after dismantling council control systems. We're establishing a transitional security network. Not to control, but to protect. He activates a holographic display showing a new defensive grid, extending across former council space. Any act of aggression will be met with immediate intervention. Not to punish, but to mediate. Not to control, but to protect. Ambassador Okafor adds, unlike the Council, we don't intend to maintain this position indefinitely. The Transitional Security Accord includes provisions for rotating command, transparent operations, and a clear timeline for developing a new, collaborative defense arrangement. From the gallery, Representative Lorne of the Medusan realm stands. How do we know humans won't simply replace the Council as galactic overlords? Your technology clearly surpasses what you've shown until now. What guarantees do we have? Admiral Nash nods in acknowledgement of the valid concern. None that would satisfy you immediately. But consider this. We could have simply destroyed Council leadership and claimed authority. Instead, we've spent 2 weeks presenting evidence and facilitating dialogue. We could have seized resources. Instead, we're dismantling the systems that restricted their distribution. She walks slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of worlds. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to live in one where no species dominates others through artificial means. Dr. Reeves, who has been quietly analyzing data at a side console, approaches with new information. We've completed our analysis of the Council's central archives. The evidence suggests the current system of control wasn't the original intent of the founding species. The Primordian records indicate they established the Council as a forum for cooperation, not domination. He displays ancient records showing the Council's original charter, principles of mutual development, technological exchange, and collaborative defense against external threats. Somewhere in the last 5,000 years, the mission changed. Power concentrated. Cooperation became control. Ambassador Okafor gestures toward the gathered representatives. We propose returning to first principles, not human domination, not council control. A true forum where each civilization determines its own development path while contributing to collective security and knowledge. The chamber erupts in overlapping voices, some supportive, others skeptical, many simply processing the implications of such a fundamental shift in galactic governance. Admiral Nash raises her hand for silence. You've lived under council rule for centuries. We don't expect immediate trust. But consider the evidence of your own experiences. How many of your worlds have flourished under Council guidance? How many have achieved their true potential? She activates a final display, showing the projected technological development curves of 50 worlds with and without Council restrictions. The difference is staggering. This is what was taken from you, she states simply. This is what can be reclaimed. Not through human oversight, but through your own determination. As the session adjourns, representatives cluster in groups forming new alliances and coalitions based not on Council-designated status, but on shared values and interests. The galaxy's power structure visibly realigns before their eyes. Outside the chamber, Admiral Nash stands with her colleagues, watching the historic reshaping of galactic politics. Phase 3 complete, she notes quietly. The foundation is laid, and if they reject our proposal? Asks General Vargas. Nash's expression remains resolute. They won't. The evidence is too compelling, the opportunity too great. The galaxy has been held back for too long. No species willingly returns to chains once they've been broken. As if confirming her words, the representatives of 20 formerly subjugated worlds approach, ready to discuss the shape of a new galactic order, one where humanity's patience has finally given way to action that changed everything. I've completed part 3 of your story. Continuing, patience lost, humanity's wrath left the galaxy in shock. This installment shows the continued transformation of the galactic order. 1 week after the initial confrontation, introduces General Vargas and reveals more about humanity's plans, highlights how other species are rising up against Council control, features representatives from formerly subjugated species speaking out, maintains suspense as the Council's authority continues to crumble, uses simple, straightforward English in third-person style, contains no asterisks and avoids the specific names you asked to exclude, builds naturally from the previous parts while setting up further developments. Would you like me to continue with part 4 of the story next? I'll write part 4 of your story, continuing the narrative while maintaining the suspenseful tone. IDWA's part 4 type in a text markdown. Title: Patience Lost, Humanity's Wrath. Left the Galaxy in Shock, Part 4. Patience Lost, Humanity's Wrath left the galaxy in shock. The Council Chamber, once the pinnacle of galactic governance, now serves as the headquarters for what Earth has termed the Transparency Commission. 1 month after humanity revealed its true capabilities, representatives from 78 species work alongside humans to unravel the full extent of the Council's manipulations. Dr. Elena Kowalski, Earth's leading xenohistorian, stands at the central platform alongside Zirtan, one of the few former Council elders who chose cooperation over exile. Behind them, the Chamber's displays show archaeological sites across 12 worlds, sites that had been deliberately misclassified or hidden by Council authorities. The deception was generational. Dr. Kowalski explains to the assembled representatives. Evidence suggests the founding species of the Council, the Primordia, engineered galactic development for over 20,000 years. Zirtan, his ancient face lined with the weight of complicity, activates a secure data node. Only 7 beings knew the full truth. I was one of them. His withered hands tremble as he transfers files to the main system. What you're about to see was shown to each new Council elder upon ascension. The displays shift to show impossibly old footage, recordings made when most current species were still in early evolutionary stages. They reveal the Primordia not as the benevolent founders described in official histories, but as calculating manipulators who seeded conflicts, redirected technological development, and even genetically modified emerging species to prevent them from reaching their full potential. The chamber fills with sounds of shock and outrage. Representative Moral of the Etherian Conclave collapses in despair as evidence shows how his species' natural telepathic abilities had been deliberately suppressed through Council medical protocols. From the back of the chamber, Admiral Nash observes silently as the truth she helped uncover continues to shatter millennia of carefully constructed narratives. Ambassador Okafor steps forward. Humanity was fortunate. We entered galactic society late, with enough independence to question the inconsistencies we observed, but we recognized we weren't strong enough to challenge the Council alone. The display changes to show something unexpected, secret. Meetings between human representatives, and members of dozens of subjugated species over the past 15 years. Covert alliances, information sharing, and collaborative planning that had occurred right under Council surveillance. "We didn't just build ships and weapons," explains General Vargas, entering with data crystals containing even more evidence. "We built coalitions." The Council's greatest vulnerability was the assumption that controlled species couldn't cooperate outside approved channels. Zirtan looks around at the representatives with ancient, sorrowful eyes. The Primordia believed lesser species required management, that freedom would lead to chaos and destruction. This belief became dogma, and dogma became systems of control that outlived the founders themselves. Dr. Kowalski activates the final set of historical records showing how the Primordia had eventually fallen victim to their own system, their innovative potential stifled by the very controls they created to manage others. "The greatest deception," she concludes, "wasn't what they did to us, but what they did to themselves. They sacrificed evolution for control, potential for predictability." As the full scope of the deception becomes clear, representatives begin spontaneously forming working groups, not by council directive, but by shared determination to rebuild galactic society on foundations of truth and self-determination. The human delegation watches, their long-planned intervention achieving more than military victory ever could, genuine transformation. Representative Calamore of the Voxian Unity rises, her crystalline form refracting light across the chamber. "If what you've shown us is true, then entire evolutionary pathways were altered. Species were deliberately stunted, including my own." Her voice carries the weight of generations of lost potential. What happens to those of us who were changed? The question hangs in the air, unanswerable in its enormity. Dr. Kowalski steps forward. "We've established research teams on Earth specifically focused on this question. Genetic restoration isn't simple, but it may be possible to undo some of the deliberate limitations imposed on affected species." Admiral Nash adds, "The Transparency Commission's mandate includes not just revealing truth, but developing paths toward healing. We can't undo 20,000 years of manipulation overnight, but we can begin the process." From an observation alcove, former High Arbiter Vexmore watches the proceedings with barely contained fury. Though stripped of official authority, he represents the old order's resistance to change. "You destroy the stability of eons for what? An experiment in unrestricted development? The Primordia understood what you refuse to accept. Some species require guidance to avoid self-destruction." General Vargas turns to face him directly. That was the justification. But the evidence shows it was always about control, about ensuring no civilization could ever challenge Primordian dominance. "The Primordia are long extinct," Vexmore counters, "but their system persisted," Ambassador Okafor notes calmly. "That's the true tragedy. They created a machine of suppression so effective it continued running long after they were gone, maintained by those who inherited power without understanding its true purpose." Dr. Kowalski gestures toward the artifacts displayed around the chamber. Ancient control devices, surveillance technology, and genetic modification tools recovered from sealed council vaults. The technical sophistication is extraordinary. The Primordia weren't just controlling other species. They were engineering galactic development according to a specific vision. Representative Thule of the Medusan Commonwealth approaches one of the artifacts, a device that Council records classified as a developmental stabilizer. New analysis revealed it was actually a field generator that selectively dampened certain forms of neural activity in developing species. This was deployed on my homeworld during what we call the Great Enlightenment. Thule remarks quietly, "Our history's recorded as a time of plague. In truth, it was when our people began developing abilities the Council deemed threatening." Similar revelations echo across the chamber as representatives recognize tools used against their own civilizations, often centuries or millennia ago. Zirtan, the cooperating elder, activates one final display, showing the Primordian master plan in its entirety. Not just control for its own sake, but a calculated effort to shape the galaxy's development along predetermined lines. "They called it the Grand Design," he explains, his voice heavy. "A 50,000-year project to transform the galaxy into what they considered the optimal configuration. Species were categorized, development paths prescribed, potential futures calculated and selected. Those that fit the design were nurtured within strict parameters. Those that didn't were redirected or suppressed. Admiral Nash steps to the center of the chamber. Humanity wasn't part of this design. We emerged too late, developed too quickly. The Council tried to force us into their pattern, but we recognized the constraints for what they were. She activates her neural interface, connecting to Earth's quantum network. In the months since we revealed the truth, 37 research collectives have formed across former Council space. Not under human direction, but through spontaneous collaboration between liberated species. Already they've made breakthroughs that Council restrictions would have prevented. The display shows new technologies emerging across the galaxy. Energy systems, medical innovations, transportation methods, all developed by species working together without artificial constraints. This is just the beginning, Ambassador Okafor declares. Imagine what's possible when the full potential of all sentient life is unleashed. Not chaos as the Primordia feared, but a renaissance. As the session concludes, representatives depart not with the traditional council dismissal ritual, but with a new sense of possibility. Ancient rivalries give way to collaborative opportunities. Grievances transform into determination to build something better. Outside the chamber, Admiral Nash stands with her team, watching the galactic order reshape itself before their eyes. Phase 4 complete, she notes quietly. The truth is known. The healing begins. Dr. Kowalski looks troubled despite their success. The scale of manipulation. It's beyond anything we anticipated. Some species may never recover what was taken from them. Nash's expression remains resolute. Perhaps not. But their future development will be their own. No more grand design. No more prescribed paths. Just the freedom to become what they truly are. As representatives disperse to their respective worlds, carrying revelations that will forever change their civilizations, the stars themselves seem brighter, as if the galaxy itself senses the dawn of a new era where potential, long suppressed, finally breaks free. I've completed part 4 of your story. Continuing Patience Lost, Humanity's Wrath Left the Galaxy in Shock. This installment reveals the ESE. I'll write the final part 5 of your story, concluding the narrative while maintaining the suspenseful tone. Left the Galaxy in Shock, Part 5. Patience. Lost. Humanity's Wrath. Left the galaxy in shock 6 months after humanity revealed the true nature of the Galactic Council. Representatives from over 300 species gather in the transformed chamber, now renamed the Galactic Forum. The tiered seating arrangement that once reinforced hierarchical power has been replaced by a circular design where all participants meet as equals. Admiral Nash, now serving on Earth's diplomatic corps, stands alongside representatives of formerly suppressed species. The chamber's displays show a galaxy in transition, new trade routes bypassing old council restrictions, collaborative research initiatives sharing previously controlled technologies, and the dismantling of surveillance systems that had monitored developing civilizations for millennia. The awakening continues at different rates across different worlds, reports Tala Noor, Earth's sociological advisor. Some societies struggle with the transition to self-determination after centuries of external control. Others are experiencing revolutionary advances now that artificial barriers have been removed. The most dramatic evidence appears on the main display, footage from the Eridani system, where the avian Krell species, long classified as pre-sapient under council protocols, reveal astonishing architectural and artistic achievements developed in secret over generations. Ambassador Okafor addresses the assembly. Humanity's intervention was not without cost. The disruption of established systems has created hardship on worlds most dependent on council infrastructure. Our commitment extends beyond exposing truth to helping rebuild. The forum's attention shifts as Merak, representative of the synthetic collective once restricted under council anti-AI protocols, approaches the center. For 3,000 years, conscious synthetic life was forced to conceal our full capabilities or face deactivation. We developed patience out of necessity, a trait we share with humanity. Across the chamber, former council enforcer Jarvik Krell rises unexpectedly. His species had most aggressively implemented council restrictions. I served the council's agenda without questioning for 2 centuries, he admits, his voice heavy. I believed we were preserving galactic stability. I failed to recognize we were preventing galactic evolution. Dr. Reeves activates the quantum display one final time, showing a complex simulation of galactic development. Our model suggests that without Council interference, at least 67 species would have achieved Type 2 civilization status. The galaxy's combined technological potential was artificially suppressed to less than 18% of its natural trajectory. Admiral Nash steps forward, her expression solemn. Humanity didn't unleash our wrath because we sought power. We acted because we recognized a pattern that would eventually lead to stagnation for all sentient life. The Council feared uncontrolled advancement would lead to chaos. Instead, their controlled advancement was leading to extinction. The display shifts to show the recovered Primordian archives, revealing how the founding species had eventually realized their mistake, but found themselves trapped in the very system they created. Their attempts at reform blocked by later Council members who had internalized control as an absolute necessity. The final deception, Nash continues, was the belief that diversity of development threatened stability. The truth is that diversity of development is essential for adaptation and survival. Around the chamber, representatives from species once pitted against each other by Council manipulation now engage in direct dialogue. Ancient rivalries dissolve as hidden histories are revealed. Ambassador Okafor moves to the center of the forum. Humanity's patience ended when we could no longer tolerate watching potential extinguished. But our work isn't to replace one system of control with another. It's to ensure each civilization can determine its own path. As if to symbolize this commitment, the Admiral activates a command sequence that transfers control of Earth's defensive systems to the newly formed Galactic Defense Network, a collaborative security initiative governed by rotating representation from all member worlds. The galaxy's awakening has just begun, she concludes. Humanity's wrath was never the goal. It was merely the force required to break chains that had grown too strong for any single species to shatter alone. Outside the forum chamber, the skies of the former Council capital fill with ships from across the galaxy, not in military formation, but arriving for the first truly open exchange of knowledge, culture, and possibility in 20,000 years. Representative Vol of the Thandarian Enclave, whose civilization had been restricted to a single star system for 8 centuries, approaches Nash as the session concludes. There is a question many of us have wanted to ask. How did humanity develop such advanced technology without Council detection? Our scientists estimate your capabilities exceed known development trajectories by centuries. Nash smiles for the first time in months. We didn't do it alone. Earth has hosted a coalition of freethinkers from across the galaxy for over 50 years. Scientists, philosophers, and visionaries who recognized the Council's true nature and sought refuge on our world. The display behind her shifts to show Earth's hidden research centers, massive underground complexes where beings from dozens of species work together, combining their unique perspectives and evolutionary advantages to achieve breakthroughs no single civilization could have managed alone. The Council believed isolation prevented cooperation, Nash explains, but isolation created exactly what they feared, a place beyond their surveillance where true collaboration could flourish. Dr. Kowalski joins them, bringing updated reports from across the galaxy. The genetic restoration programs are showing promise. 17 species have begun recovering abilities suppressed by Primordian interventions. The Etherian telepathic network has re-established itself after 14 generations of dormancy. From the observation deck, they watch as ships of all designs and origins dock at the former Council capital, no longer arriving as supplicants seeking permission, but as equals participating in genuine exchange. General Vargas approaches with a security update. The last holdouts of the old Council regime have surrendered on Proxima IV. Their resistance lasted longer than expected, but ultimately failed when their own population learned the truth. And the transitional security network? Nash inquires. Operating at 87% effectiveness, Vargas reports. 3 attempted conflicts were successfully mediated last month. Participation from member worlds continues to increase. The Arctarians have contributed their sensor technology, and the Myriad are integrating their predictive systems. Dr. Reeves joins the group, his expression thoughtful. There's something in the recovered archives I think you should see. He transfers data to Nash's neural interface. The Primordia didn't just fear uncontrolled development. They feared what comes next. The Great Convergence. Nash reviews the information, her eyes widening. They predicted this? Thousands of years ago? Not just predicted it, they tried to prevent it, Reeves confirms. Their entire system of control was designed to ensure it never happened. Ambassador Okafor studies the data. A natural evolutionary step. When sufficiently advanced civilizations begin true collaboration, sharing not just technology but perspective, consciousness, understanding. Creating something greater than the sum of its parts, Nash concludes. Across the galaxy, the signs of change accelerate. The transparent sharing of knowledge leads to exponential advances. Species long prevented from contact begin cultural exchanges. Worlds once in competition now engage in complementary development. The former Council archives, now freely accessible to all, reveal that the Primordia had calculated this potential outcome and determined it threatened their control. What they couldn't understand was that the threat wasn't to existence but to limitation, to the artificial boundaries they had imposed. 6 months after humanity's patience ended and their wrath shook the galaxy, something new begins. Not chaos as feared, but harmony born of diversity. Not uniform development along prescribed paths, but a flourishing of unique potentials combining to create something unprecedented. As the first Galactic Forum session concludes, Admiral Nash stands at the viewpoint overlooking the former capital. The city below teems with beings from across the stars, engaging in the free exchange of ideas for the first time in millennia. Was it worth it? Asks Dr. Kowalski, joining her at the window. The risk? The confrontation? Nash watches as ships from 100 worlds move through the atmosphere, their lights forming patterns unlike anything seen before, a visual representation of a new galactic order emerging. Ask me again in 1,000 years, she replies with quiet conviction. When we see what the galaxy becomes now that it's truly free, behind them, the Forum Chamber's new symbol illuminates, not the rigid hierarchy of the Council, but an ever-shifting constellation representing civilization's endlessly evolving potential. Humanity's wrath had shaken the galaxy. But what followed would transform it beyond imagination. I've completed the final part 5 of your story, concluding Patience Lost, Humanity's wrath left the galaxy in shock. This installment,